The storm had ripped through Red Valley with a fury no one expected, tearing fences out of the ground, scattering roofs across meadows, and leaving a silence in its wake that felt heavier than the roar of the wind itself. Rich rancher Colton Hale rode his horse along the muddy ridge just after sunrise, surveying the destruction that stretched far beyond his own property line. Colton was known all over the valley wealthy, influential, a man whose ranch covered more land than anyone could measure on foot. But despite all the money he had, the one thing he valued most was the people who made the valley what it was. That's why, when he saw an old couple down the hill, struggling to drag a broken beam away from what used to be their barn, he reined in his horse so sharply that Blaze kicked mud behind him. He squinted, brushing rain-soaked hair back from his forehead. That was Earl and Mabel Dawson, or as the valley folk called them, the Dawsons, two of the most hard-working, stubborn, kind, elderly people anyone knew. They had lived on that land for more than 50 years. And now, the storm had left them with nothing but splintered wood and soggy livestock feed. Colton nudged Blaze down the slope. When he got close enough, he heard Earl grunting as he tried to force the beam aside, while Mabel, well into her 70s, kept trying to gather scattered tools with trembling hands. Colton dismounted in one swift motion. "Mornin', Earl," he said, voice steady. Earl didn't turn at first, too focused on the beam. "Morning, Colton," he muttered finally. "Don't mind us. Storm made a mess, but we'll handle it like we always do." Mabel looked up with a tired smile. "We're fine, dear. Just gotta get things upright before the cattle wander too far." Colton took in the sight, their barn roof torn off, their chicken coops smashed, half their fence flattened, and waterlogged hay everywhere. It wasn't fine. Not even close. A ranch needed shelter, fencing, feed, and order. The Dawsons had none of that left. Colton's jaw tightened. The valley had always admired the couple's grit, but grit didn't rebuild a farm from rubble, especially not with bodies that had long passed their younger strength. "I'll stop now," Colton said, voice firm and final. Earl looked up sharply. "What did you say?" "Stop," Colton repeated. "Put the tools down." Mabel straightened. "Colton, sweetheart, we appreciate you checking on us, but we can't just stop. We don't have time to rest." "You don't have to rest," he said. "But you're done working alone?" Earl's brows knitted. "We don't want charity." "Good," Colton said. "Because I'm not offering charity. I'm offering help." But Earl shook his head. "I know how this works. Folks feel sorry for the old couple on the broken-down farm. We're not helpless." Colton stepped over the muddy mess and put a hand on Earl's shoulder. "No one said you were helpless. I'm saying this isn't a two-person job anymore." Before Earl could argue again, Colton whistled, a sharp, piercing sound that echoed across the valley. Within moments, 3 riders crested the hill Colton's ranch hands, men who worked sunup to sundown for him. They had shovels, tools, coils of wire, lumber strapped to their saddles. Earl's eyes widened. "What in the world?" "Help is already here," Colton said. "We're rebuilding today." Mabel pressed a hand to her chest. "But we didn't ask. You didn't have to." Colton looked around. "Let's get started." The ranch hands tied their horses and went straight to work, hauling away debris, stacking salvageable boards, pulling fence posts upright. Earl opened his mouth to argue again, but Mabel touched his arm gently. "Let him, Earl. Maybe this once. Maybe we let someone take care of us." Earl swallowed hard, pride shifting to something quieter relief he was too stubborn to show. Colton shrugged off his heavy coat and joined in, lifting beams with the strength of a man who'd been working cattle since childhood. Hours passed, and as the sun climbed higher, more neighbors arrived. Word spread fast in the valley Colton was helping the Dawsons rebuild. People came with boards, feed, tools, extra hands. Not because the Dawsons asked, but because everyone owed them something in one way or another. Mabel had fed half the valley's children during storms when their parents couldn't get home. Earl had fixed fences for widows without asking for a penny. Now the valley returned the kindness they'd given for decades. Colton organized everything like a commander on a battlefield. He barked orders not with harshness, but with clarity. You three, reinforce the west wall. Make sure the foundation's steady. Build the new chicken coop behind the shed. It'll be sheltered there. Move the hay to the dry patch under the oak tree. The Dawsons watched the chaos unfold in disbelief as their community rebuilt the life the storm tried to steal. Earl wiped sweat from his brow. Never thought I'd see the day I'd be standing around while others worked my land. Colton chuckled. You're not standing. You're supervising? Earl huffed. Same thing. Mabel sat on an overturned crate, resting her aching knees. Colton, dear, why are you doing all this? We're old. Rebuilding won't bring much back for us. Colton paused. His voice softened. I grew up watching you two take care of everyone else. When my father died and my mother didn't know how to run a ranch alone, you brought us blankets and stew. You taught her how to mend a saddle. You helped us survive. I wouldn't be here without you. So now it's my turn? Mabel's eyes misted. She had always known Colton as the boy who lost his father too young, who shouldered responsibility too early. Seeing him now strong, commanding, compassionate filled her heart with pride. The day stretched on. By afternoon, the broken barn had a new frame rising. The fences had been repaired, and the animals were rounded safely into enclosed pastures. Fresh hay arrived from neighboring ranches. Lumber was donated. A new metal roof for the barn came on a trailer from a ranch 20 miles away. Colton worked harder than anyone, refusing water breaks until others took theirs first. Earl finally grabbed his arm. Colton, you'll collapse before sundown. Sit down for a minute. Colton smirked. I'm fine. Sit, Earl said, in a tone that reminded Colton of his father. Colton finally relented. As he sat beside Mabel, she handed him a cup of sweet tea she had somehow managed to make despite the chaos. Your mama would be proud of you, she said softly. That hit him deep. I hope so. The rebuilding continued for 2 straight days. People came and went, some bringing meals, others bringing parts, others bringing simply their strength. No one asked for payment. No one waited for thanks. This was the valley's way, help one, help all. On the 3rd day, as dawn painted the sky orange, the new barn stood finished. Stronger than the old one, the chicken coop gleamed with fresh paint. The fences were straighter than they'd been in years. Mabel cried when she saw it all. Earl rested his hands on his hips, his voice thick. Never thought we'd see our place whole again. Colton placed a hand on Earl's back. Your place wasn't whole because of the buildings. It was whole because of you two. We just rebuilt the rest. But Earl, always stubborn, still tried to hand Colton a small envelope. Savings, he muttered. It's not much, but it's payment. Colton pushed it back. I don't want your money. Then what do you want? Colton thought for a long moment. Just this promise me you'll call me when you need help. Not after things get bad. Not after you try to handle it yourselves. Call me first. Earl looked down, humbled. We ain't good at asking. Learn, Colton said gently. Later that afternoon, the valley gathered for a meal on the Dawsons' property to celebrate the rebuild. Tables were set up under the oak tree. Kids ran through the fields, and laughter wove through the air like thread stitching the community back together. Mabel hugged every person she could. Earl shook so many hands he lost count. When the meal quieted, people nudged Colton forward to speak. He wasn't a man of speeches, but he cleared his throat. Storms don't decide who we are, he said. What we do after they hit. That's what defines us. The Dawsons have spent their whole lives making this valley better. We owed them this, and we'll keep helping each other every time something knocks us down." The crowd murmured in agreement. Earl and Mabel stood on either side of Colton, holding his hands like proud parents. After the meal ended and the crowd dispersed, Mabel approached Colton as he tightened Blaze's reins. "You gave us more than a barn, Colton. You gave us hope we thought we'd lost." "You never lost it," he said. "You were just carrying too much alone?" Mabel smiled. "If your father could see you now." Colton looked away, swallowing emotion. "I miss him every day." "I know," she whispered. "But today, you honored him." As Colton mounted Blaze, Earl stepped forward. "Colton," he said in a quiet tone rarely heard from the old man. "You're family to us." Colton nodded, touched deeper than he could express. "And you're family to me." He rode off into the early evening, knowing the Dawsons' ranch, small, humble, rebuilt with love, would stand strong again. The storm had taken roofs, boards, fences, and feed, but it hadn't taken the valley's heart, and as long as Colton lived, it never would.